Morning, everybody. Welcome to this session today. So it's a joint webinar between 3D Repo and Asite, focused on streamlining BIM coordination and risk management for architects. So from the 3D Repo side, I've got myself, obviously Will, and my colleague Jamie joining. And then from the Asite team, we've got Kieran, who'll be providing a bit of an overview of the Asite solution and one of their new products they've just released. So to provide a bit of an agenda for today's session, so first of all, we'll be covering kind of a high-level overview of 3D Repo. So what do we actually do and how do we work with architectural practices? We'll then dive straight into the common challenges architects face when it comes to BIM and design coordination, as well as managing risks on projects. We've focused on these two areas in particular for today's webinar, just because they represent some of the most common use cases for our platform, and we get asked about them all the time. So I think it'd be useful to cover these in detail today. We'll then obviously kind of provide information as to how we assist with these particular areas, both from this presentation I'll be providing, and then with Jamie doing the live demo as well. And then, as I mentioned, we've got Kieran from the Asite team today, who'll give a high-level overview of their solution and their new product, Asite for Architects. And then we'll finish things off with a sort of brief Q&A session. So if you've got any questions as we go through, please feel free to enter them. I think there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to enter them there, and we can try and get around to them at the end of the session. So a brief round of introductions. I'm William, one of the account managers here at 3D Repo. Been with the company for a little over 3 years now. I'd like to think I've aged a bit since this picture taken pre-COVID. And then we've got Jamie joining as well. So Jamie recently joined the 3D Repo team to oversee sort of customer success and adoption. So Jamie will be providing the demo today. And then we've got Kieran Preston, Business Development Executive for sort of UK and Europe. And as you can see there, if you want to get in touch with each of us or any of us, our contact details are on the screen as well. But we'll also have a QR code at the end of the session anyone can scan to reach out to the team. So how does 3D Repo work? Well, first of all, we're a cloud-based BIM platform for design and project coordination, enabling easy access to your models all through your web browser. Now, how it actually works is we take your various design authoring file formats, which you can see on the top left here, and then you upload those to the 3D Repo cloud. From there, you have access to a wide range of coordination functionalities, so things like your issue tracking, your clash detection, and your risk management as well. Now, I think what makes us such a dynamic platform and provides real value for our clients is our ability to connect with your existing software ecosystem through the use of our open APIs. So linking information from one tool to another to provide that single source of truth on your projects, and crucially, reducing data silos and duplication of work. So, for example, linking with different CDEs, obviously Asite's a fantastic example there, design authoring tools like Revit, or project reporting tools like Power BI or Microsoft Excel. So how do you get your data in and out of the platform? Well, there's three main ways. Firstly, you can just directly upload. Again, as you can see here, we work with a wide variety of different file formats. The second way is by pushing your data or your models from your CDE tool. And as mentioned, we work with a wide variety of providers, obviously Asite being a key example. And I think the benefit of that CDE link or the integrations that are usually set up is it helps automate that process of model uploading. So again, just saving time on your projects. And lastly, we have our plugins for the major Autodesk authoring tools. So probably very familiar or common for architectural practices, tools like Revit, Navisworks, AutoCAD, and Civils 3D. the benefit of these particular plugins or integrations is they enable that bidirectional transfer of information. So you can have one of your designers or your design team working purely within that Revit environment, and they can have a near enough live communication or conversation on an issue or a safety risk with the project team working within 3D Repo platform. And then in terms of data exports, you can pull data from the platform in a JSON file or as a BCF. So the main use cases we'll be focusing on today are firstly issue management, safety base, and our data validation tool, Smart Groups. So combined, these offer a sort of 360 approach, you could say, to managing, tracking, and grouping data and risks on your projects, and importantly, in a very user-friendly manner. So if we start with issue management, so communicating issues throughout a project lifecycle, but particularly during early design stages, is fundamental to preventing issues from occurring on site. So our issue tracker allows you to record pins in 3D space to identify issues and then assign them to the various stakeholders for streamlined project management. Now, Safety Base, a tool some of you may be familiar with. It's an award-winning system designed to improve the identification, mitigation, and management of health and safety hazards. From an architectural perspective, both pre-construction and during construction stages. Now, we developed this tool to help resolve industry challenges of risk data being very unstructured, disconnected, and complicated. And crucially, conforming to the PAS 1192 Part 6 requirements. And then lastly, our data validation tool, Smart Groups. So this provides a simple way for users to validate data and group model elements together for easy progress tracking, and also ensuring more reliable data outputs for the client. So with its ease of use, Smart Groups democratizes that data validation process. So anyone, regardless of software knowledge, can access and leverage these tools. And of course, Jamie will cover these in more detail during the demonstration and what the workflows tend to look like here. Now on to the key challenges that 3D Repo and the Asite platforms are looking to resolve. And some of these may sort of jump out at you straight away, be quite familiar, others not so much. But if we start from the top left and work our way across, first of all, and I think the biggest challenge in our industry is around complexity of BIM software. So you've got fantastic tools like Revit and Navisworks, which have great functionality. But if you're not well trained and if you don't use them on a daily basis, they can be very difficult to pick up and access the information within them. And a good example of this is for the principal design team, who may not be using these authoring tools on a daily basis. Now with this, BIM can create a lot of data silos. So particularly if you're working on projects with multiple stakeholders and different teams all working within different softwares, what you'll tend to find is formats aren't always compatible with one another. And then you have a lack of information exchange and teams start working in their own silos. And then when it comes to a risk and issue perspective, these can then be missed and incidents can then occur on site. And that's what we're trying to prevent here. Now, interoperability, definitely a question for the audience. How many pieces of the software or softwares you use on your projects integrate seamlessly together? It's likely not all of them or many of them do link well together. And that links back to that previous challenge around duplication of work and importantly, having that single source of truth. Data lock-in. Do you actually own your own data? Is it locked into a proprietary file format? Can you access the models and the information you're working on now in 5, 10, 15 years' time? With 3D Repo, we always make that data accessible and open source, So you can pull the information from the platform whenever you need to. Now, moving on to spreadsheets, something I think principal designers and many people involved in risk management will be very familiar with. While Excel does play a crucial role in helping teams to outline the key risks on a project, there's only so much a spreadsheet can provide you. You can't necessarily visualize a risk or get good context as to where a risk might be occurring by looking at a static 2D set of information. And I think particularly when for the audience today, architects are naturally visually minded people. So when teams and principal design teams are trying to get project stakeholders to visualize a risk, showing an Excel spreadsheet might not always be the best way to do this. And I think overlapping with this is around sort of dialogue and communication. Spreadsheets don't always encourage communication with risks, both from a spreadsheet perspective or in the Revit environment. So I think particularly if the principal design team is not comfortable working within a Revit model or a Revit environment, they won't always be able to communicate effectively, again, if they're not comfortable using those tools. Now, responsibility. This is a huge issue when it comes to hazard mitigation, and that's who's actually responsible for ownership and mitigating certain risks. So if no one's taking responsibility, then this increases the chances of hazards being missed and then incidents then occurring on site. So having that clearly defined audit trail of who's responsible for what, who said what, is critical on projects. And lastly, again, linking back to that spreadsheet point, visualization can be very difficult. So if you don't have easy access to that model environment, again, it means certain risks can be missed and a spreadsheet can only show you so much, particularly if you've got new hazards developing continuously as the design progresses. So yeah, many of you may be familiar with these challenges. I think if you've got a tick list there, how many can you relate to? So now importantly, how does 3D Repo actually help resolve some of these issues? Well, I think firstly, we make the accessibility of your models and data really simple, really easy. Being a web-based platform, you can access your data anywhere, anytime, as long as you've got an internet connection, and there's no downloads required. Now, the byproduct of having easy access to your data and being able to share information with stakeholders is effective decision-making. So I think particularly for principal design teams, you can review the model in your own time. You're not dependent upon the design team alone sending you that Revit model. And again, you're not then disrupting the design team's live model. Now, as referenced with our ability to connect platforms, we enable that buzzword, that single source of truth on your projects. So you can easily push your risks from, let's say, your Revit environment to 3D Repo, to your Excel risk registers, and then the CDE platform, or wherever you need to push that data to. From a risk perspective, providing simpler CDM deliverables. So easily collaborate on risks and produce deliverables at the end of the project without having to rewrite the entire Revit model because one risk changed or needed to be updated. And I think crucially here, with 3D Repo, and particularly the safety-based tool, we give you guys agency over that risk mitigation process and provide, I think you could call it a safe space to visualize, discuss, and strategize how to resolve hazards. And I think, yeah, importantly here, we're trying to prevent CDM and risk management, but being marginalized to a short window at the start or the end of a design team meeting and give it the attention it deserves. Now, most importantly, I think the key line here is ultimately saving time, money, and lives. So if you can complete your work more efficiently, reduce the chance of projects being delayed, and then reduce the chance of risks being missed and then accidents on site, I think the tool was it's paid for itself there. So who's actually leveraged 3D Repo in the past, who's using it currently? We've worked with a wide range of architectural and multidisciplinary practices to help streamline both BIM coordination and risk management. And hopefully your company logo may be on this, this list soon. So yeah, that's all for the initial part of this presentation. I'll now hand over to Jamie to cover the demo section. Again, if anyone's got any questions as we're going through, please feel free to add that to the Q&A section. We can answer them at the end of the session. So yeah, over to you, Jamie.
All right, thanks, Will. So thank you everybody for joining this morning. My name is Jamie Iskander. I'm going to be running you through a demo of 3D Repo, and hopefully you can identify with some of the challenges that Will mentioned on the previous slides and see some of the benefits that 3D Repo can offer. Good, so today I'm going to run you through some basic navigation just to show you how easy it is to explore the model. And I'm going to move on to the bulk of the demo, which will be issues and risks. Now risks, that's through our product called Safety Base. And then finally, I'll move on to groups and data validation and some of the clever ways that you can identify if all the model data is correct. Good. All right. So first of all, let's go to navigation. I'm going to move into 3drepo.io. Now, what you're seeing here is viewed through my browser, in this case, Google Chrome. Can we run through any browser? Now, the great thing about this is that anybody can log into this. So I don't need to install any software on my computer. I can give a license to any architects, the clients, any other discipline, and they can immediately come in, view the model, and add comments and so on. Good. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you the way to navigate around the model. Now I can zoom in and look a bit closer at these offices. I can zoom back out again, and I can pan around this hotel. So get a really nice way of visualizing this inside a design review meeting, for example. I can just come around this hotel and then explore in real time what that looks like. But let's say you're doing a design review meeting and you do want to have some views repaired. So you want to make sure there's certain parts of the buildings that are highlighted and explored. And we can do this by using views. Now, views are effectively saved snapshots of the building. And if I click on one of the views as an example, what I've done here is taken a section of the building. So you can see a sort of bird's eye view of these hotel rooms. And so you can discuss this and then you can zoom in again. You could perhaps take a section of the outside of the building, and it's going to take me each time to a particular section. And you can have all these pre-prepared, anything that needs to be spoken about. For example, the plumbing fixtures, the internal columns, and all these can be isolated and saved as a view. All right, I'm going to return now to my default view and close this. And now the next part of the demonstration is around issues. Now, issues are really about improving the design. It's a little bit different to safety base, as issues is really focused around improving the design and making sure that the design is as good as it can be before we go to detailed design or even construction. So back into my demonstration again, I'm going to open up the Issues tab, which is on the left-hand side, and it's the top left button. So what you see here is a list of existing issues. Now I'm going to create an example here. Let's go to the top of this roof and say, let's click the plus button at the bottom, and we'll say, can we put an outdoor space on the roof, just as an example. And what you're going to be able to do is add a pin, so that the location that you're referring to is clear. And then you've got at the bottom here, the priority, the status. You're able to assign it to a particular function or person. And then finally, the type of issue that it is. Now there's a sort of, here's one I created earlier example, which should look quite good. So I want to go to window clashing. Let me just type in window. All right, so what I've done here is I've saved a particular view of a section of the building. and we're going to come into this and see a bit more detail. So there's a screenshot included here with a red line markup. We can see that it's priority medium, status is open. It's not been assigned, so I can assign it to the architect, and this is a BIM issue. Underneath here, we get a full list of comments. Now, I might say, tag in one of my colleagues and say, hi Faisal, can you review this? And this all forms part of the history of the ticket, and this is all recorded in the issue history. Now, the next thing I can do is toggle through the issue. So again, let's say we're in a meeting. I just want to run through each issue at a time. By clicking the arrows at the top of the ticket, it takes me one by one to each of these issues. Okay, so now we're on to Safety Base. Now, there's a few things I want to show you within Safety Base. First of all, is how to create a new ticket. Now, it's very similar to issues, but then I want to show you how to create reports from there, and then finally how to connect those reports to Power BI. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come through into a different tab here, and this tab has been specifically created for Safety Base. Now, you see the pins in here, these upside down triangles with exclamation marks. Now, these are Safety Base risks. Now, similar to issues, they're accessible from the left-hand side. We get a full list of different issues on here, different risks, sorry. And I'm going to go to the top of the building again, but this time I'm going to add in a new pin, and I'm going to call it fall from heights. We'll add a pin to the top, and what you'll notice on the left-hand side is the data is in line with PAS 1192 Part 6. So this will be the overall level of risk, and this is calculated through 3D Repo. So the risk likelihood, let's say it's high, and the consequence is very high, and that determines my overall level of risk. Again, I can assign it to the architect, and I can put it through categories. So we say fall from open edge, and so on. So we can fill in the rest of the metadata here and save this card. Now, the clever thing that you'll see through this particular card is that we also have treatment suggestions. Now, when I have my risk fall from height, a lot of this has been done on previous projects. So rather than have to start every time with a new treatment, we can simply click suggest. So this is a preliminary stage, and I'm going to eliminate this risk. And we say consider precast sections with S protection. And we'll select that as a treatment time. Okay, now moving up to one that we did earlier again. Let me find this one. So I want to go to landing is missing. Now, this is one that's been done in the past, and you can see that it's all been filled out. We've got a screenshot with markups. And again, we've got this full history. Please check this status here to James Gregory. Can you have a look at this? All received and changes made. Now, this goes back to Will's point about accountability and that audit trail, which allows you to see a live and collaborative approach to all the risks and make sure that everything is closed out, ultimately getting a better design and saving lives. Okay, so let's say I want to now filter these risks. So we go up to the search button and click on the filter, and I'm going to go to the overall level of risk is very high. So these are the ones that I'm interested in, and we're going to see which ones have been, let's say, allocated. Risk owner is the architect. Okay, so a couple of different issues, different risks in there. And I want to produce a report of that. So I'm going to go to the three buttons, the ellipses at the top, and do a report. I'm going to hide the log. So I just want the images along with the detail. Now, this has all been produced here along with the screenshots, any other metadata I've tagged against it, and I can print this and send it around my team. The last thing I'd like to show you is the connection with Power BI. Now, we have templates which we have connected to this particular model, and we can see the status of all the open safety-based risks. So we can see that there's been 7 risks, one of them is unmitigated. You can see that 2 of them are very high, the rest are moderate, whatever it happens to be. Now, this will help you to manage those risks, see which ones are being closed out. And similarly with the risks, we also have a dashboard here as well. So we can come in here and we can see the open issues. We can see what the status, what the priority is, who it's been allocated to, and so on and so on. Now, these templates are available on our website. You can download them directly from 3D Repo. However, if there are certain things that you'd like to tailor through Power BI, you're obviously welcome to do that yourself. We can also help you to tailor those Power BI dashboards. So a lot of flexibility in the output from 3D Repo, making sure that we're really clear on what's still outstanding. Good, and finally on to groups. Now, let me come back into 3drepo.io. And I've got a different demo here, but I'm going to show you how groups work. So groups and smart groups are really, the purpose of these is when we have thousands of elements on a project, it's really difficult to identify and track different model elements. The groups and smart groups allow you to visualize and validate that model data. For example, let's go to the group section here. For example, you may want to see which of your doors meet the fire rating. Now, it might be that most of them do, or it might be that most of them don't, but you're able to color code this and see visually which ones stand out. So I've clicked here on the fire rating is 20. Now, this is a smart group. So you can see here that it says smart. And what that means is I can add filters. So I've said, show me everything that's a door, and then show me everything that has a fire rating of FD20. And then we can isolate all of those. Now, in this case, most of the doors have the right fire rating, which is great. But let's say that just 1 or 2 aren't meeting the right fire rating. Those would be identified, visualized, and then I could do something about it and change the doors, whatever I need to do. And as before, we can, let's show all again. As before, we can toggle through and see different groups I've created. Maybe you've got different columns, maybe you've got different walls, whatever it happens to be. And it's all ready for you to review as a team. So the advantage of this is it speeds up the validating of model data, and that's going to help you with accurate project takeoffs or procurement. It can even help you with project delivery, facilities information, and asset management. Okay, that's everything I wanted to show today. I want to keep it quite brief. So there is more that I can show you. If you'd like to get in touch to learn more about things like custom tickets, connection with Excel, connection to CDEs, get in touch. We can show you that in a custom demonstration. So today I showed you navigation, how to navigate around the model and create save views, and then showed you the issues, and then I showed you the risks through safety base, and then finally groups and data validation. And over to you, Kieran.
Thanks, Jamie. Awesome. Cool. So one of the things I'm going to be going through today is our new product, Asite for Architects, which we'll highlight at the beginning. So I'm going to run you through that. And if you've got any questions at the end, please sort of jump in. So essentially, to give you a bit of a background of Asite, Asite was founded in 2001, so we've been around for just under 22 years now. Headquartered here in London in Mayfair, but we're a fully global brand. 80% of our revenue is generated from sort of the UK and Europe, so a lot of our development going forward is sort of focused in that direction. There's 3 main ways of accessing us as a platform, so I'm sure other people on the call here have probably gone through www.asite.com to access the main sort of online SaaS environment. The second way is obviously through the field tool, so that's through a tablet or a mobile, and that can be done both on an Apple and Android device. And that can be done to sort of access all your drawings out on the site, and also to track all your snagging and defects too. And ultimately that leads to what we call a single source of truth, or a golden thread of information across all of our data. And obviously with the current laws around golden thread coming in, it can be quite sort of relevant for what's going on at the moment. Now, you're probably wondering, how does the Asite for Architects product work? So essentially, Asite came together about 6 months ago and realized that within the market, there's quite a need and a gap, I guess, for a sort of single source of truth across all your information. So often architects won't actually procure a CD for two main reasons. The main reasons being, obviously, they're very complex and often a lot of the functionality they have is not necessarily needed. Also, the CD is often actually provided by the client. So actually the need for a CD isn't really there. So Asite put our heads together and we said, what can we actually do to solve this problem? Let's provide the Asite platform at actually a reduced cost, because often architects won't procure it because they're extremely expensive. So then they can use it as both a repository for all their information, so to store all their 2D files and all their models, but also in the situations where clients don't provide a CDE and where you will come to us and say, can you provide a CDE in this project? It will also be available for that option too. So the idea is that it supports Rebus stages 1 through to 4. And then when you get to Rebus stage 5, you then got the option to push the information into another CDE, or if the client asks you to provide a CDE, you can then use that going forward. Now, if the client then wants to actually take forward that information from Rebus stage 4/5 onwards, they can actually come to Asite and then procure that workspace and all of the other modules that Asite facilitates. So how does that actually look as a product? So obviously Asite's mainly known for its common data environment. And what it actually includes is actually what's in the architect package below. So it's 95% of the core functionality. So that's all your dashboarding, so all your live reporting that comes through for each individual user for all their projects or singular projects they're looking at. Obviously your document management as well. So how you're managing all your 2D files and all your 3D models as well. And then your workflow management, so the uniform ways of sort of making information travel around the system through different system and user tasks to standardize and reduce time. Then in the middle there, we've got something that was brought out towards the sort of the end of last year, which isn't necessarily known massively by the market at the moment. So it's called Amail. So Amail is essentially an Outlook plugin or a mail management tool that essentially syncs with your Outlook and allows you to push all of your emails and information directly up into the CDE. It's currently being widely used by a lot of our clients. We do have some architects currently using it, and I could actually go through that at a later date if people want to look at that in more detail. Obviously, what's very relevant for architects there is the model management. So we support the likes of IFC and Revit, and we've got a Navisworks integration, which is currently in the works to come through very soon. And we're also looking to support Rhino files in the near future too. Obviously, we can come on to the stuff around 3D Repo at the end in a bit more detail. The other sort of bubble there, task management. So obviously there's lots of tasks around sort of approvals and verification on files before they're sent out to the client. So that can all be managed through the Asite platform. The two forms that we've identified with our clients, so submittals and RFIs, a lot of our architectural clients use those to actually transmit information and request for information from their existing clients, both internally and externally. And then finally, project templates. So the standardized way of actually presenting and collecting all your information across your whole portfolio of projects. So that ultimately allows us to work with quite a broad range of clients. So I'm sure everybody on the call recognizes a lot of the logos on the screen. So obviously Asite as its core platform supports the likes of construction clients, so all your tier A contractors, obviously your property developers down the bottom there, and also your construction managers. And then more importantly, where the majority of you will fall in will be the architect space. So we work with the likes of Scott Talon Walker, Adamson, Orms and Horrens Rainsford. We are actually currently working with a number of clients to actually bring on the Asite for Architects platform, which will be adding to that list in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, working with such a broad range of clients means we have what's called a single view. So in terms of the modeling, we support obviously the likes of 3D Repo, and as I said, we can go through that in a bit more detail as to how that integration works at the end. We also integrate with Bluebeam, which allows you to obviously track all of your commenting and marking up within the system. Also your AutoCAD, Revit and IFC files as well. And then in terms of your HR function, we can support stuff around your accounting function. We can support the likes of Sage, SAP and Coins, which allows you to push information in and out of the platform, and also your signing software for signing off documents as well. And then obviously down the bottom there, your communication tools, so your Microsoft Teams, your Google Meets, your SharePoint and your Zoom. Now to come on to the last slide around security compliance. So obviously with the whole golden thread, this is a sort of very relevant slide to look at. Asite is fully ISO compliant in the way it stores and manages its data. It's ISO 27001 and 19650. One of our tier A contractors asked us to acquire the Cyber Essentials Plus package, which I know from speaking to a lot of architects is a very industry relevant certification to have. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is we're the only platform within the industry to have a full data accreditation across our whole product suite, which means it allows you to actually bid and work on sort of Ministry of Defence projects. Now, in terms of your data, so a question that's often come up with people is around how is my data stored and managed? So your data will all be stored on a Microsoft Azure server, and that will be stored in the country that your project takes place. So for example, if you've got a project taking place in the UK, it will be stored on the UK server, and for example, in Europe, it is stored on the European server. And it will never leave that country, so it will always stay within the country that the project's taking place. We then have what's called Tier 4 disaster recovery. So every half an hour, you get a full backup onto Amazon Web Services. And again, that will be stored and managed within the country that the project takes place. We also have things to sort of strengthen security around multi-factor authentication and the single sign-on as well. So that's how the Asite for Architects product sort of works. I'd now like to open the floor to both questions around this product and also around the 3D Repo product as well. Thanks for listening.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Kieran. So yeah, do have a few questions that have come in. Actually, before we go to the questions, so if anyone is interested to speak with either the 3D Repo team or the Asite team, feel free to scan those QR codes you can see on the screen. So on the right side is for Asite and the left is 3D Repo. But yeah, if we go to the questions, so the first one I'm seeing here, will there be an integration or connection with Vectorworks? Did you want to cover that at all, Jamie? I'm not sure on what the file export is from Vectorworks, but
Just find my mute button. I would need to check. So we have integrations with a lot of different platforms via our API. I'm not aware of anything specifically with Vectorworks, but get in touch. We can have a conversation. So we do have an IFC format which we can use. So yeah, get in touch and we'll speak about that.
The second question is quite a good one. So again, Jamie, might be one for you. So although you can add a pin to a risk, is there a way to create a zone? So let's say a fall from height would be a large risk across the whole roof. Are you able to sort of zone that risk? So I think I've got a couple of ideas, but did you want to cover that, Jamie?
Sure. So I think the best approach for that is to use the shape tool. So what you can do is select an area within the model, and then by highlighting that area, you can say that the risk applies to everything within that area. So I think that if I've understood the question properly, that's the best way to get that shape identified and then say the risk applies to everything within there.
Nice, thank you for that. With safety base, can the tags or pins be hidden? Yes, they can. So it's quite easy with both issues and risks to unclick or sort of hide them so they're not cluttering the model. Another one here. How do you know when a safety ticket has been resolved? Okay, so the best way to understand or visualize when a risk has been resolved is on the treatment status. So within that, I think Jamie showed, you can select so like partially agreed, voided, etc. I think there's a couple of other categories. And I think once it's fully agreed, that pin is then removed. We've got a question here around the workflow between 3D Repo and Asite. It's just worth noting here, so yeah, there will be future demos, webinars, etc., but much more in-depth look at the integration between Asite and 3D Repo, and it's something which is evolving at the moment at a rapid rate. But Jamie, did you want to sort of cover a very sort of high-level overview of how 3D Repo and Asite work together, just to just give us sort of a brief understanding for people?
Sure. So at the moment, it is quite early days with the acquisition, but what we're looking at is some integration in the near term that allows us to leverage some new workflows using 3D Repo. So any data that and insight that we generate is going to be automatically linked and captured in the Asite platform. So we do have some customers that use both Asite and 3D Repo. So going to be working closely with these customers and understand the sort of traditional and new ways of working in construction. And we're going to work with those customers longer term to make sure we build a really good and solid integration that's going to maximize the value for the industry. So if anybody has ideas, has things that they'd like to see, it's very much going to be collaborative. So get in touch, and we'll keep you up to date as we develop.
Thanks for that, Jamie. Another one here related to safety base. So how can we see what safety risks have been assigned to specific job roles? So yeah, quite easily done. You can filter, I think Jamie showed within, again, both issues and risks. There's a filter section on the top right of the safety base card. And then you can filter that by particular job roles. So you can see architect, subcontractor, main contractor, and you can customize those particular roles. But then if you want to communicate with a particular individual, you can just mention them in the comment section below on that particular risk. So I hope that answers that one. We've got one relating to transfer of risks between projects. So is it possible to transfer risk from one project to another? Yes, is a simple answer. It's quite easy to do. The best way is probably to push them from an Excel risk register. So if you're working on similar projects and you're not wanting to duplicate and having to re-enter the same risks over and over again, if you've got that one risk register, you can push that to multiple projects or push those risks onto multiple projects within 3D Repo. And just on that particular point, you can download like ready-made templates from our website to use just on the Excel risk register point of view. Okay, I think we've got a question on data hosting. So where does 3D Repo store, where will 3D Repo store our data? So we use Microsoft Azure, so the same as what Kira mentioned, what Asite uses. Okay, we've got another good question. Is the communication for risks bi-directional? Depends what you mean by bi-directional, but if you're referring to communicating between different platforms, it will be. So between like 3D Repo and Revit, it's bi-directional communication. So all of the risk data that Jamie showed can be transferred to, let's say, a Revit environment. And then you can have your designer working in Revit having near enough live communication with the project manager or one of the other architects working within 3D Repo. Likewise, we're between 3D Repo and Excel as well. So any changes you make to a risk in 3D Repo, when you push that to Excel, will then be reflected and vice versa. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Okay, yeah, you just clarified there from Repo to Excel and back again. Yeah, so the communication is bi-directional. Okay, I've got a question on licensing. So I'll cover 3D Repo and then Kieran, if you wanted to cover how the Asite licensing works. So for 3D Repo users, you can either purchase a user-based package or a project-based package. Pretty self-explanatory. So user-based, you purchase a pack of 10, 25, 50 or so on users, which you can then assign to multiple projects. And then project-based is for a single project license, which has unlimited users. And that tends to be purchased more by sort of the main contractors. Architects tend to be more buying a pack of users and assigning to multiple projects. But yeah, Kieran, did you want to cover how licensing works for Asite?
Yeah, sure. So licensing with Asite will work based on unlimited users, unlimited data, unlimited projects. And the pricing will be based on the number of projects you have currently live at the moment. So there's 3 price bandings based on that. And if anybody would like to know a bit more about that, I can go over that with you after the call.
Brilliant. So yeah, I think that's all the questions I can see. If anyone's got any last minute ones, quick, get them in the chat or the Q&A section. Otherwise, like I mentioned, feel free to reach out to myself or Kieran directly, or scan the QR code you can see on your screen now and be more than happy to set up a more in-depth conversation with you guys and make it specific to your sort of workflows and project requirements. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining and attending today's session. It's greatly appreciated. And we look forward to speaking with you all soon. So yeah, cheers guys, and thank you Kieran and Jamie as well.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.
Cheers guys, speak to you soon. Bye.